Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember. Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Sometimes the way the talk goes, it doesn't come from me. And so last week I was talking about movies, and I had no intention of continuing to talk about storytelling. And yet it all started coming forward, and then Gloria does her amazing announcement about our movie night coming up. Jack did that incredible reading, thank you, Jack, about stories. Stories, the cosmic stories. The author of that is Brian Swim, who is a cosmologist. And so a question that gets asked often on the spiritual journey is, how big is your God? And so just tweaking that a little bit, I'd like to ask, how big is your story? How big is your story? Big, nice. That's who we are. So when I was in high school, my dad loved movies, but we only saw movies like as events as a family, but he loved seeing foreign films, and I guess I was the only other person who would willingly go with him, and it was the greatest treat, because what I discovered through these foreign films were whole different cultures, whole different ways of understanding and seeing the world. And my dad, one of his gifts is just his brilliance, so we would leave, and it was always the discussion afterwards that it would open up my eyes to see things I would have never seen if he hadn't pointed them out to me. And so my world was expanding because I was seeing these foreign films. And then when I got into college, I realized I didn't have to wait for like a big event to go see movies. I could just go see movies whenever I wanted. And so I started seeing movies, and I just loved them. It was my way of exploring the world without having to travel. And it also became a time where I also saw how other people understood the world was through this power of storytelling. So I remember one time I went into the bathroom after seeing a movie. It was an independent movie on the FBI, sort of artsy movie. And I was in a stall, so they didn't see me, but these two women, and this woman was just so upset. That was an awful movie. That is not how the FBI works. And she said, they have it all wrong. And the other person said, oh, really? And she started naming other movies about the FBI to prove that this movie about the FBI was wrong. So her entire understanding of how the FBI works came from other movies. And that's when it clicked. I'm like, wow, movies, stories are incredibly powerful in how we choose to see the world. I was listening to a podcast. It's called, I believe it's called We Can Do the Hard Things. It's with Glennon Doyle, who wrote Untamed Heart, and her wife is Abby Wambach, who is, for those of you who don't know, just this extraordinary woman on the women's soccer team, was the FIFA 2012 Athlete of the Year, men and women. She's just a leading scorer. I mean, she's just amazing. So she's this professional soccer player now doing these podcasts with her wife, Glennon, and Glennon's sister, Amanda. And they were interviewing Reese Witherspoon, and I was just listening to it yesterday. And so Reese, she was telling the story of years ago, she had been asked to go to jury duty, and she said she was sure they weren't going to choose her. She was trying to say all the answers so they wouldn't choose her, but they kept choosing her till finally they picked her. She's one of the jurors on the jury. So she said, I spent 5 days going all day listening to this trial about whether this woman was guilty or not. The jury goes off to deliberate, and she said, without even discussing it, the entire room turned towards me and said, you are our head juror. And she said, why me? And they said, because you know the law. You're Elle Woods. From Legally Blonde, from this movie character that she played as a lawyer, they didn't even discuss it. Of course she's going to be the foreperson. We can't help but be influenced by these stories and by people who play these roles. So one of the things that Brian Swim, who is a mathematician and cosmologist, he's a professor at the California Integral Institute in San Francisco, but I first heard him speak at the Association for Global New Thought, AG&T, and Institute of Noetic Sciences put on a combined conference back in 2003. And he was one of the speakers, and he blew me away. And he continues to do. And one of the, as you can even hear in that reading, and that reading is just a bit from a 7-page article, which is brilliant. And but one of the things he points out in that article is that since the Industrial Revolution, our stories have gotten smaller. That most tribes created sort of creation stories, had a meaning of how they were in the world, how they played in the world. He said, since the Industrial Revolution, most of the stories that we tell are personal or about our lives here on this earth, and we don't necessarily relate our stories here to a great cosmic story. Not always, but in general. We like superhero movies, but still the superhero movies are about changing this world here. It's not about our connection with the cosmos. And so what he was saying, his intention is, we have to start telling the cosmic stories and seeing our lives as cosmic stories. That's what's missing. That's what's going to save our planet. We're in all this crisis right now. What's going to save us? It's the stories that we tell. So I wrote this down because some of you can recite these facts off the tip of your head, mind, tongue. I cannot, so I am reciting them. I started reading it to Julian, and Julian said, "Oh, I learned that in 4th grade, Mom." So this is I got this from one of Brian Swim's lectures. So what's the size difference between the Earth and the Sun? So the Sun is 1,000,000 times larger than the Earth. So that means that there's 1,000,000 Earths, planet Earths, that fit into the Sun. 1,000,000 Earths fit into the planet Sun. That's pretty big. And then he said, then you take a star, and he picked a particular star, Y something or other. And he said, now the star is 9 billion suns. So it takes 9 billion suns to fill up one star. He said, when you're on that star, the Earth doesn't even, it's like it disappears. You can't even see it. It's so vast. We're getting into this, how big is your story? And going back to how big is your story? So in the Milky Way, so this one star is 9 billion suns, and within the Milky Way, there's 300 billion stars in the Milky Way. 300 billion stars. And it's 9 billion suns that make up a star. How big is your story? And then, of course, we have more than one galaxy, right? How many galaxies? We have 2 trillion galaxies. 2 trillion galaxies. So are you getting the massiveness? Like, it's like beyond human comprehension. How big is our story? So light takes 100 million years to get here. So any light that we're seeing from stars, it's taken 100 million years. So what we are seeing is the past. Whenever we're saying we had the NASA pictures of how cool that is, that's actually what we're seeing is something that happened many years ago. Isn't that extraordinary? So we're living in this cosmic, the time and space understanding of it is extraordinary. It boggles the mind. And he talks about how the amazing part is that it all starts from a single spot that was smaller than an atom. I love that he says this. Hold on, I'm gonna put it down. This last quote that he says, it's like the candle is the entire universe, and the flame is who we are. Our consciousness is the work of 14 billion years of creativity. Our consciousness today is the work of 14 billion years of creativity. How big is our story? So we talk about, he talks about it comes from this little light, or a little thing less than an atom. And I love that so much because we've heard that before. Even when I was reading Julian of Norwich, who was in the 1300s, she wasn't well educated, as women weren't back then. And certainly there wasn't this whole idea of the Big Bang. And I say that because her revelations then are not clouded by anything that she's read. It's a direct revelation from the divine presence, and the divine presence tells her puts a mustard seed in her hand, says, that's the source of creation right there, the mustard seed. She was getting this directly from the universe, and that's what he was saying, is this cosmic stars created it so that we would be conscious and know who we are. The stars wanted to know itself through us. We are made of star stuff. It is in us. These 14 billion years of stars are inside of us and is consciously awakening, and it starts off as this beautiful atom, this little tiny seed, and expands outward. And then we have that same truth that he's talking about in his lectures, that St. Augustine talked about in his lectures, that we are the center of where there is no circumference. So in every point in time and space is the center of the universe, of the cosmos. Why is this important? Because we are simultaneously this vast cosmos, and we are an individual particular expression. So for instance, one time I was driving across country. I'm either in Utah, Colorado, they're both gorgeous. It was beautiful. I was listening to Agape, singing along to the songs. I turned to my left, and in that turning, a little bit of a shift of consciousness, and there's one of the beautiful rock formations, and it said, I was here before those existed. It was the I. I felt very much I. I didn't feel like God up in the sky, not something separate. I was here before those rocks were formulated. And then immediately following that was, and I'm going to be working with, although it didn't say, it's more like of a you. It's an interesting, this whole thing. You're going to be working with Reverend Michael Beckwith, which at the time didn't mean much. I mean, I knew who he was, but I didn't have so I said, okay, but I was moving East Coast. But what's interesting about that, the cosmic identity, this cosmic reality that's been here before those 14 billion years, which is at the center of every one of our beings. Every one of us has that I am that has been here for 14 billion years. And there's also the personal. And you're going to be, which is very specific to a particular person in time and place. That these two are so intertwined that it's extraordinary, and we are here. The whole theme this year, is about awe and wonder, to be in awe and wonder. And the way we be in awe and wonder is to open ourselves and to look at our stories, to really look at our stories, both from the cosmic perspective of being here for 14 billion years, which isn't just made up, that's a reality, and being a particular person in time and a place and a personality. And that those two things are absolutely always happening. I've talked about before about writing my biography. My grandmother asked me to write. And I love it because since I've talked about it, I've heard several other people in different areas of my life talk about them writing their biography, and they're having the exact same experience. You start to see all these things as I was writing that are connected, that are not time or place limited. And I'm like, wow, I mean, I didn't do it. I had no idea it was happening. It wasn't until I took a step back and was looking, I'm like, wow, like who knew this? Like there is this incredible divine intelligence. We all have it. We all have it. And the greatest thing that limits us is to say that we already know. When I say I know something, I've immediately shut down to allow something new to come forward. That to live in awe and wonder, to live in that wonder, is to live in the like, wow, I'm just curious. I would say curiosity is one of the greatest things, to be curious. I was having a conversation with someone this past week, no one in our community, but in that conversation I was sort of saying, well, I wonder if that's even possible. And they said to me, and they're not even new thought, but it was such a new thought thing to say. So of course it's possible. If I'm one with God and I want it to be so, it's going to be possible. And I'm like, wow, that's a new thought thing to say. I was about to pat him on the head and say, good job. But I walked away from it and I thought, but no, that actually constricted me, because now you know the answer, and so why even ask the question anymore? It was in the very wondering that I felt the excitement, where I felt the enthusiasm. I wonder if you could combine these two things. And their immediate answer, of course you can, took the wonder out of it. Well, there's no point to wonder anymore. We already know the answer. And then we move on and we lose the great magic and mystery of this universe. The mystery is not knowing. The mystery is allowing the Spirit, this infinite cosmic realm of intelligence, to continue to reveal to us afresh and anew every single day. Otherwise, we're just repeating and repeating and repeating what I already know, what I've experienced, what my past tells me. I don't allow something new to come through my awareness. Wonder is the most glorious, wonderful way to live in alignment with the cosmos. To say, I don't know, but I am so curious that I'm going to think about it a lot. I'm going to contemplate. I'm going to ask the question a lot. I'm going to keep asking the question. I'm going to ask the trees and the grass and the sky and my friends and strangers. I'm just going to be in curiosity and allow this divine spirit to move itself through our stories. How big is your story? Another one of the conversations they had on this podcast was with Natalie Portman. And it's funny, when I saw these two actresses as people they were talking with, I immediately like, I don't want to hear actresses. And they were so interesting. It's so funny that this love of films and storytelling, because we learn so much through stories. And so one of the things they were praising Natalie Portman for doing is she got a bunch of women together, and they became the first owners. They just had, I think, their first soccer game recently of a women's soccer team. So it's all women run, all women owned soccer team. And of course, Abby is one of the wife of Glennon Doyle, is one of the owners as a brilliant soccer player. And what they were saying, well, what made you do it? You know, and she said something very similar to Reese. She said, well, I didn't know I could do it because I constantly just jump into things without, just and often I'm wrong. I'm usually way over my head. I don't know what I'm doing, but I just keep doing it. And either I fail, which is fine, or I learn how to do it. I get other people to help me to do it until it works. And so in this particular case, getting all these women and calling them, she didn't know anything. She wasn't a soccer player, but she said, let's get women to own a soccer team, and she did it. Both Reese and Natalie were saying one thing that being an actor has given them is the ability just to jump into things that they don't know. So much, think of how much we identify ourselves. We talk a lot about in our communities, at least since I've been in, is like, first it was Myers-Briggs, and then it was your astrological sign, and then your Enneagram sign. We spend a lot of time trying to understand our own individual personality. If you're an actress or an actor, you're immediately trying to go into other people's personalities and stories. And I remember that was actually one of the reasons I did not have a call to be an actress, but I actually went for it at one point, and that was the exact reason why. Because I was in my early 20s, and I thought, I don't want just one job that I have to stick to for the next 50, 60 years, doing the same thing over and over. I get married, have kids, and then I die. You know, it just seemed dull. I wanted to experience I thought, wow, because I liked watching movies to experience the other world. I thought, being an actor and actress, I can be in someone else's world, but it's only for 4 to 6 months. And I get to experience these different cultures, these different ways of being, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different personality, relationships, and I get to have all those experiences. How does that help us in finding out who we are? Well, in both Reese and Natalie's experience is they've done things now in their regular human life that they both said they never thought they were going to do, but they've gotten so used to expanding their identity of who they think they are. So Reese started this Hello Sunshine book group and to really promote stories that are written by women and where women are the main characters, and then it was bought out, and they were telling all these stories about women whose lives it has changed to have this book group about women, for women. Natalie Portman, I mean, they're just both doing so many things that they never thought they were going to do, but it was from being bold. So we're talking about we are made of star stuff. Being bold. We have 14 billion years of creativity that made all of us up. We need to be bold. We need to not constrict, but to open up. One of my favorite examples that they used actually was Abby was using it. So she's this great soccer star playing since 2001 to 2015. So when she stops, she goes through a really difficult transition. Who am I now? This is all I've been. Everybody knows me as this great soccer star. am I done with my life? Where am I going? Who am I? Who am I without soccer, without that identity? And her friend said to her, she said, it's like you're a trapeze artist. You know, the what do you call those? The bars, the swing bars on each side. And she said, it's like you're holding on to each side of the trapeze with both hands, and you're not willing to let go. One's the past, and you're really gripping and hoping the future is going to hold you. And she said, but if you look at trapeze artists, the magic happens when they let go of both, and they're flying through the air. I love that. The magic happens when we let go of everything that we think that we know, the things that are going to prop us up and hold us and protect us, and we allow ourselves to fly through the air. That's when we allow the cosmic, infinite story to pour through us. When we're wide open, it doesn't pour through us when we're scared and holding on. And so why I think Brian was saying what we need to do is tell stories. We need to tell cosmic stories. We need to open up. We need to open up to the magic, that it's astonishing and miraculous. If we look at the news right now, it is terrifying. The climate change. If you read only the scientific stuff about climate change, if we read about what's happening politically, it is for me, it's very depressing. It's scary. The gun violence, it's just one thing after another. And it can feel completely overwhelming. How are we going to solve these problems? And especially climate change, which seems really overwhelming. Like our planet, we're seeing the impact in our world already of climate change. What are we going to do? But we can't get the answers from holding on to the past. We got to let go. We have to let go. And open to the mysterious, cosmic, miraculous energy that has birthed itself 14 billion years to allow its magic to move through us. We have to start trusting the cosmic energy. We've been telling stories about our small selves for so long, we forget the infinite intelligence that has created this mind-boggling, beyond human concept world, universe, galaxies, cosmos, to trust it to guide us in ways that we can never before imagine. We can't look to the past to solve this problem. We have to open to the realm of infinity. Isn't that wonderful? So when we look at how big is our story, where are we in our story? Are we holding on? Are we open and allowing something new? At the beginning of this month, we were talking about having that one thing that no matter what's happening, it's our base, it's our foundation. So is that one thing the net that no matter what, you're flying through the air, but that net's going to catch you? Is it one of the bars to hold on to? Or is that one thing, the air that surrounds you as you're flying through the cosmos, that you completely trust the air, that it's going to carry you to exactly where you need to go, not individually and collectively? The great cosmic story. Doesn't this excite you? Man, it excites me. I love the freedom of it. We have all the answers inside of us now. We don't need to go anywhere. The cosmos is inside of our very being. This infinite 14 billion year history, those 14 trillion galaxies are inside of us. Every one of us is a miracle. Every one of us is a miracle. But we have to tell the story of a miracle. We have to tell our own story as a miracle. That's the relationship we want to be in with this beautiful cosmos, is that we are in a cosmos of miracles. One last point, and I can't go into it because it's way beyond now, but one of the things Brian Swim points to is that the universe is expanding. So you have this tiny thing, and it's expanding, and it's growing. It's not staying constricted. It's not holding on to one bar. It's opening and expanding. So that's why we have 14 trillion galaxies, is because it keeps expanding, and it's continuing to expand. And as I was reading that, or hearing him say that, it made me remember something, and it was just today, like this morning, so I didn't look it up, but it reminded me of something that Yogananda said. he was visiting a lot of saints and gurus of all religions when he was traveling around. And one of the ones he felt the deepest and most profound connection with was St. Francis. When he went to the St. Francis Church, he would just go and put his head on the stoop and feel, and then he said something, and he said, this was in a private letter to his disciple, this was not put in a book. And he said, I love to meet St. Francis, and when we meet, we explode out into infinity together in this tunnel of light. He didn't say we constrict and go back into the Big Bang and find our original source. We connect in the original source and we expand in a tunnel of light into infinity, which is exactly what we're seeing in our galaxies. How big is our story? How big is our story as the Lighthouse Center for Spiritual Living? How big is our story as the Center for Spiritual Living? Are we willing to let go and explode outward? And how big is your story? Your story with yourself, with your family, with your friends, how big is our story? Are we living the cosmic story? Are you living the cosmic story? It's a wonderful thing just to be in the curiosity of it, in the wonder of it. When I ask that question, I'm not asking for an answer. I am inviting that wonderful consciousness of wonder. I wonder, how big is my story? How big is your story? Let's pray. And even in asking that question, I just feel like dancing in delight. There's nothing more freeing than not knowing. I love feeling the vastness of this universe, that the very vastness of it is our protection. This very vastness is the realization that we are always free, that we don't need to hold on to anything right now, that as we move into prayer, we don't have to hold on to any structure or anything that's going to help us. We can let it all go. We let it all go and we just say right now, here and now, the divine presence, do we feel it? Do we feel the divine presence at the center of our being? Do we feel that we are part of this cosmic story right now? Do we feel it? What would it take to feel our life as a cosmic story? What would it take for me to know that I am a cosmic being? We each individually open our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and our souls to be in this wonderful, wonderful experience of wonder, of openness, of curiosity, of interest that consumes us, that we feel it in the depths of our soul and of our being, to allow this longing to come bursting forth, to come bursting out, to be expressed in ways that we've never seen it expressed before, seeing new aspects of our beautiful multidimensional being show up in ways that we've never before experienced ourselves. We allow other people to be their amazing, brilliant cosmic stories and to show up in our lives and these relationships in ways that have never happened before. We are connecting with other people. We are connecting as a country and as a planet, not based on old habit patterns, but on something brand new that is calling all of us, that is saying, call, ask and ye shall receive, knock and the door shall be open. There is a great cosmic being, presence, infinite intelligence that is wanting us to be curious, to wonder, to open, to make ourselves available, not just individually, but collectively, so we can feel its power, to feel its magic, to feel its beautiful, astonishing, amazing revelations, to guide us as a beautiful, wonderful species of this beautiful sentient life planet, to guide us on this beautiful planet Earth, to guide us. It is protecting us through its guiding us. It's protecting us by demanding us to move through an open door that we may not see right now, but it's right there. It's right there when we have enough curiosity, when we have enough interest and enough wonder to see. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we just metaphorically get on our knees in humility. In humility and gratitude. Humility and gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everything that we need has already been given. It delights in giving itself to us. We receive it here today. I join my beautiful sisters and brothers in spirit, saying, yes, we receive. We are open. We are receiving you now. We are feeling you now. We are welcoming you now into our heart, our body, our atoms and cellular life of our beingness. Yes, yes. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. In deep abiding gratitude, we join together in our hearts, in our bodies, in our minds, in our souls. and say, thank you, God, and so it is.
I walk in God in all